So we are talking this month about creating a life of magic, a life, in fact, of big magic. Not little dinky magic, but big magic. Based on this fabulous book by Elizabeth Gilbert called Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear. And we've explored this month the attitudes, the approaches, the habits that are needed for us to uncover our fear, that are needed for us to uncover our hidden treasures, to face our fears, and to trust the universe. And when we do that, we bring about this creative, magical life, the life that Spirit wants to live as you. The life that universal energy source, God, whatever term or phrase you want to use, the life that this essence that brought you into being, let me rephrase that brought itself into being as you, wants to live. When we create big magic in our lives, we are giving Spirit the opportunity to fully express as us. Because we believe, and I say this every single Sunday, but I will say it again today, that we are here as incarnations, as living embodiments of God, of the divine. That is who we are. And we are made in the exact form, shape, size, with the gifts and talents that are perfect for this moment in time in the history of the world. You are here by divine appointment, on purpose, as you are, right here, right now, to bring forth those hidden gifts, to share them in the world, to bless the world with them, and for you to be blessed as well. And as you do that, then you let God be fully, as Meister Eckhart once said, let God be God in me. So we're speaking this month about letting that happen. And as a brief review, very brief review of where we've been, I want to give you a little illustration. So this, my friends, is the book of your life, all right? Here it is, right here, the book of life. When we are living in fear rather than curiosity, when we are afraid to uncover our hidden treasures, our lives might feel like this. Okay? Just kind of not much going on, not much happening. Certainly no big magic happening here because there's nothing happening here. But when we move out of fear, when we uncover who we really are, when we discover that which is in us that brings us joy and fulfillment, and we share that with the world and bless the world with that, when we start to be enhanced by our own inspiration, when we move forward in persistence and determination, knowing that we do not need permission to do that, that was a summary of 2 weeks right there, our life begins to look like this. And just in case you didn't see it, there it is. It begins to look like this. And then, when we truly, truly trust that which can be trusted, which is where we're going to go today, that's when big magic really occurs, and this is what your life looks like. Merlin the magician's got nothing on me. David Copperfield. That was fun. That was very fun. Thank you for the sound effects, Dave. That was perfect. So what is it that can be trusted? What can we trust? Absolutely trust. Well, today is going to be story time day, and I have 4 stories to share with you today, all of which illustrate, lead us to, and solidify and anchor what can be trusted. And the first story is kind of two stories kind of rolled into one. I want to read directly from here. So this is story time. You're not going to get your blankie and go to sleep after this. I hope anyway. But this is a story that, and I want to read it directly because Elizabeth Gilbert is just a great author, and she's very fun, and the way she writes. She's also a little colorful, we'll say. If those of you who are reading the book, it's colorful. So there are a couple of colorful words. I'll maybe edit a bit because while they are certainly words I have said before, I'm not going to say them here. Right? You know, there is some ministerial decorum that must be kept, I suppose. I'm not sure about that, but here it is. So this will lead us to answering the question, what can be trusted? My friend, Dr. Robin Kimmerer, is a botanist and author who teaches environmental biology at the SUNY, S-U-N-Y, College of Environmental Science and Forestry in Syracuse, New York. Her students are all fervent young environmentalists, earnest as can be, desperate to save the world. Before they get down to the business of world saving, though, Robin often asks her students these two questions. The first question is, do you love nature? Every hand in the room goes up. The second question is, do you believe that nature loves you in return? Every hand in the room goes down. At which point Robin says, then we have a problem already. Without a sense of relationship, Robin warns her students they are missing out on something incredibly important. They are missing out on their potential to become co-creators of life. As Robin puts it, the exchange of love between earth and people calls forth the creative gifts of both. The earth is not indifferent to us, but rather calling for our gifts in return for hers. The reciprocal nature of life and creativity. Inspired by this notion, she writes, I now often ask aspiring young writers the same question. Do you love writing? I ask. Of course they do. Duh. Then I ask, do you believe that writing loves you in return? They look at me like I should be institutionalized. Of course not, they say. Most of them report that writing is totally indifferent to them. And if they do happen to feel a reciprocal relationship with their creativity, it's usually a deeply sick relationship. In many cases, these young writers claim that writing flat out hates them. Writing messes with their heads. Writing torments them and hides from them. Writing punishes them. Writing destroys them. Writing kicks their 10 ways to Sunday. As one young writer I know put it, for me, writing is like that, we'll call witchy, beautiful girl in high school who you always worshipped, but who only toyed with you for her own purposes. You know in your heart that she's bad news, and you should probably just walk away from her forever, but she's always lures you back. Just when you think she's finally going to be your girlfriend, she shows up at the school holding hands with the captain of the football team, pretending she's never even met you. All you can do is weep in a locked bathroom stall. Writing is evil. That being the case, Elizabeth Gilbert says, I asked that young man, what do you want to do with your life? I want to be a writer, he says. Are you beginning to see how screwed up that is? She asks. So what is it that we can trust? What is it that we can put our faith in? We can trust that we are so loved by the universe and by the ideas that land on us that we will be supported in every way, shape, or form to bring those ideas into the world. Because that's the crux of what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to say it again. We can trust that we are so loved by the universe, by God, by source, by spirit, whatever term you want to use. We can so trust that we are loved by this presence and by the ideas that have landed on us, that we can trust that we will be supported in every way, shape, or form to bring those ideas into fruition. Many of us, I don't think, even realize, have thought about that we could trust the ideas that come to us, the ideas that land on us that we get enchanted with, that we can trust that they love us and therefore will be brought into manifestation through us. And it does not take our blood, sweat, tears, struggle, pain, suffering for it to happen. Now, this book and the example that we just read about writing is, we think often about artists, struggling artists who, die a little bit each day for their art. And she talks a lot about that. And with every piece written, they give a little bit of their soul. Well, that's just hogwash. I mean, a lot of people live that way, but we don't have to live that way. But we're also not talking just about artists. We're talking about anyone who wants to live creatively. And remember, our definition of living creatively is living a life based more on curiosity than on fear, and living a life where you bring forth that which brings you joy and fulfillment, which in turn then blesses the world. That's what we mean by creative living. So I'm saying you can trust that whatever it is that has brought you inspiration, whatever it is that you get that full body, tingly response when the idea comes, that idea loves you and wants to be made manifest through you easily and gently and kindly. And it doesn't have to be about suffering or struggle or work to pull it out. I love these words from Big Magic. Elizabeth Gilbert writes, "This is my question. I think it's a fair one. Why would your creativity not love you? It came to you, didn't it? It drew itself near. It worked itself into you, asking for your attention and your devotion. It filled you with the desire to make and do interesting things. Creativity wanted a relationship with you. That must be for a reason, right? Do you honestly believe that creativity went through all the trouble of breaking through into your consciousness only because it wanted to harm you? Because think about it. If the only thing an idea wants is to be made manifest, then why would that idea deliberately try to harm you when you are the one who might be able to bring it forth? All I can tell you is that for certain is that my entire life has been shaped by an early decision to place my trust in the crazy notion that my work loves me as much as I love it, that it wants to play with me as much as I want to play with it, and that this source of love and play is boundless." I love that last phrase. This source of love and play is boundless. Now, Elizabeth Gilbert doesn't write like our founder, Ernest Holmes, meaning, in lots of ways, but what I mean is that she doesn't capitalize every time she's talking about God. So if Ernest wrote that statement, the source of love and play is boundless, source would be capitalized, right? The source, God itself, universal intelligence, is boundless in its love and its desire to play in this world of form through you and as you. That we can trust. Ernest Holmes wrote in Creative Mind and Success, our accompanying book this month, said, "Always combine faith," which of course is just another word for trust, "in the higher power with all that you do. Feel that you are being especially looked after." I love that. Feel that you are being looked after. Feel that there is an energy, an essence, a power that is looking out for your good. Actually, in January, we're going to talk about, well, never mind. We'll wait. You'll come in January. We're gonna make up some new words in January, and one of them is about this topic, but we'll get there. So, feel that you are being especially looked after. This is true. When a soul turns to the universe of unmanifest life, at the same time, it turns toward him or her. Jesus told this in the story of the prodigal son. The father saw him from afar. Always there is that inward turning to us of the parent mind of God when we turn to it and place ourselves in closer contact with life. Have no idea of limitation. Speak forth into mind with perfect trust. So Ernest Holmes refers to the story of the prodigal son. I told you today is story day. This is the second of 4 stories. Many of you know the story of the prodigal son. Some of you may not. But you've probably, even if you do know it, you've probably never thought about it in the context of where I want to put it today. And I'll share it briefly in a second. The Context is the father in the story. This is a parable of Jesus's, by the way, for those of you who grew up in Jewish heritage and don't know the New Testament. It appears in Luke. So one of Jesus spoke in parables all the time and metaphors so we could get what he was saying. So the father in this story, we always look at that as God. That's a symbol for God. And yes, absolutely it is. But what I'm asking you today to look at it as an aspect of God, that aspect of God that is the idea that comes to you, that inspires you, the idea that comes to you that you embrace and you get enthusiastic about, that aspect of God. Think about in this story now that the Father represents those ideas coming to you. So the story goes like this. The son, there's a very rich man, and he has two sons. One of them is restless with his privileged life, and he decides that he wants to get his half of the inheritance now and just go off and lead his own life, not under the wing of his father and probably not under the watchful eye of his father either. So he goes to his father and says, I want my half of my inheritance now. Can I have it? And then I want to split this boring place. I don't know that he quite said that, but something to that effect. His father said, all right, yes, it's yours anyway. I'll split it in half, leaving your brother's part here intact, and here is your money. And so the son got his money, off he went. And he was living high on the hog, thinking that money would last forever. And he spent it well. We don't know what he did exactly, and we can only imagine what a young, rich boy did. So he did whatever he did, and eventually the money ran out. Eventually, there was no more because there was no flow coming in. He wasn't doing anything to generate any more flow. He didn't have any idea how to generate flow. So he was just spending. One day, it's gone. It's all gone. There's nothing more. He becomes homeless. He becomes hungry, and he doesn't know what in the world he's going to do. One day, he finds himself in the pigsty, trying to keep warm in the mud with the pigs, and he thinks to himself, even my father's servants have a better life than this. Now, I don't think I could go home and ask my father to take me back into the house because he's had an epiphany, like maybe what I did wasn't the smartest thing, and maybe my dad isn't going to welcome me back with open arms. But maybe he would at least let me come be a servant, and I can have a roof over my head, and I can have clothes, clean clothes, different clothes that aren't ratty and ragged, and food. That's what I'm going to do. So he decides to come home. He's walking home, and he's quite a ways away, but his father is looking out the window, and his father sees him. And his father says to the servants, quick, kill the fatted calf, prepare a feast, get me the finest robes and rings, give them to me because my son who has been lost has come home. And with that, the father gathers up the fine clothing and the rings, and he runs out to meet the son. Now, the son doesn't know why the dad is coming. Son might be thinking dad's coming to say, get the heck off my property. But in fact, when they meet, it's a Kodak moment, I'm sure, when they meet, and the father grabs him and envelops him in his arms and in love, and he puts the robe on him, he puts the rings on his hand, and he says again, oh, behold, my son who was lost has come home. And he brings him in, and they have a big feast. And his father celebrates him. Think about that. The Father as being your dreams, your aspirations, your goals, your divine ideas. They are, and you may have had them, but then you go off. You go off into the wilderness to do whatever you're going to do. It's your doubt, your worry, your concern, you're thinking you can't do it, then all the blah, 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 the chatter. It's just waiting for you to come back. And when you start to come back, boom, it comes running to you. There's a beautiful saying that when we take one step toward God, God comes running to us. When you take one step toward living, implementing your dream, your vision, then your vision, your goals, your aspirations come running to you. You can trust that that which you are seeking is seeking you. You can put money on it. You can trust it. Elizabeth Gilbert writes this. So, is it delusional of me to place infinite trust in a force that I cannot see, touch, or prove? I'll disagree with her on the word prove because I think we can prove, but I'm reading what she said. A force that might not even actually exist? Okay, for the sake of argument, let's call it totally delusional. But is it any more delusional than believing that only your suffering and your pain are authentic? Or that you are alone and that you have no relationship whatsoever with the universe that created you? Or that you have been singled out by destiny as specifically cursed? Or that your talents were given to you for the mere purpose of destroying you? What I'm saying is this. If you're going to live your life based on delusions, and you are, because we all do, why not at least select a delusion that's helpful? Allow me to select this one. The work wants to be made, and it wants to be made manifest through you. And I will change the word work to expand it to be dreams, aspiration, visions, goals, that which brings you joy and fulfillment. Wants to be brought forth, it wants to be brought forth through you. So I turned this into a mantra, expanded a little bit to encompass other things we've talked about, always, in this month particularly, about putting our one step in, taking our steps, one foot in front of the other, doing the next thing in front of us. So how about this for a mantra? If you like it, we'll put it on. We'll wrap ourselves in the beautiful clothing of this mantra. Here it is. I trust that my dream, I'm going to use dream here. I trust that my dream wants to be made manifest, and it wants to be made manifest through me, so I take the steps necessary to bring it into form. How is that for a mantra? Yes? Do we like that as a mantra? Then we know what to do. Those of you who have been around for a while, we take the power stance. And anybody see the news actually on Fox News on last Sunday at 5 o'clock? There was a little piece on us in the news, and the camera guy was in the back, and he got you doing this last week, standing like it was an amazing shot. It was glorious. But all right, so I'll chunk this down into small phrases so we can get it. I trust that my dream wants to be made manifest.
I trust that my dream wants to be made manifest.
And it wants to be made manifest through me.
And it wants to be made manifest through me.
So I take the steps necessary to bring it into form. I trust that my dream wants to be made manifest. And it wants to be made manifest through me. So I take the steps necessary to bring it into form. Woo! Yeah. We can trust this. This can be trusted. So I want to give you a third story of how it works. I'm going to set it up, and then you'll hear the story. So Roger Webb is one of our newest members, sitting right there. And Roger just finished, like many of you did sitting here, finished our foundations class. Last Wednesday night was our final night for foundations, and that is a spectacular night where the students present their projects, and it is holy, and it is gorgeous, and it is, just touches my heart like ways cannot. Look, all former students are going, yeah. Oh, so if you haven't had this class yet, join us in January. Anyway, at the end of class, Roger says to me, do you have a couple minutes? Yeah, of course. He said, I just want to ask you if you would hold something in prayer for me. And he told me what it was. I said, of course, I'm happy to hold that in prayer for you. I get a text from him on Friday morning. Wow! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Call me when you can. I want to tell you what happened. So we did. I said, wow. Then yesterday, I was working on this talk and where we're going to go and how, and I thought, Roger's story, oh my gosh, Roger's story is this. Roger's story is a compilation of everything we've talked about and about trusting. So, to tell you the story, I told it in first service because he wasn't here, but he's here now, so I'm going to invite Roger up to tell his own story. Roger, come on up.
All right, good morning.
All right, good morning.
So, wow, what a week this has been. For those of you who don't know, some of you don't, I have an 18-year-old daughter who's traveling around the world right now with an organization called Up With People, and that's right, you know them, awesome. So they have an amazing mission of bringing peace to the world through service and music, and this is a kid who was really hard to raise. And over the last 6 months, I've seen her become a really freaking amazing, powerful woman. And they're finishing their tour this semester in Rome next week. And I, back in January, said, I'm going to be in Rome to see her sing. And events happen, things happen that financially, all my money's now paying for her trip, and so I didn't have any to pay for Rome. So I decided I wasn't going to go. So last Saturday morning, I'm driving, and I was listening to the Up With People CD, and tears start pouring down my face. And I heard a voice that said, you have to be in Rome. You have to go see your baby do this work. And I said, but have you seen my bank account? And then the voice that came after said, you know what to do. You have the tools. I've been teaching these tools for 20 years. It's time for you to practice what you preach and make this happen. Whew. Okay. So I went home and I told my partner, hey, do you think you could take about 2 weeks off in a couple weeks and cancel all your clients and make everything happen? And he looked at me like I was crazy and said, yeah, right. I said, you know me, and we need to be in Rome, and I'm going to make this happen. And trust me when I tell you, my bank account was empty. And so I said, okay, we're going to go to Rome, and we're going to make this happen. And so I pulled every tool that I have, prayer, manifestation. I played with the workshops in my head with the assistants I have who helped me do amazing things. And I spent my entire 24 hours a day, 7 days a week working on this. And so I went to bed that night, did a whole bunch of work in my head while I was asleep, and woke up with some great answers. And I created a couple new programs for my business that I thought, yeah, I could get some people to sign up for these programs I'm doing, and we could make some money. Yeah, we could make this happen. We could do this. So money started trickling in very, very slowly, but it started trickling in. So come Wednesday, we're going to Rome. Wednesday morning, Christopher called me, and he said, I have to block my schedule if we're doing this. He's a hairstylist in a very high-end salon, and this is the busiest time of their year. He said, I have to block my schedule, and I have to reschedule 10 days worth of clients that are not going to be happy. And I'm not doing this unless you know we're going. We don't even have plane tickets yet. I said, reschedule your appointments. And this was a really cool thing. So that you know Christopher, he's really new to this work. And he trusted me. And he trusted that this works, and he canceled his clients, and he rescheduled them, and he blocked his schedule. That is the biggest victory in my life. I have to say that right now. So that was very exciting. He's not here, so I can talk about him. So that was very exciting, and I'm like, all right, we're going. Dang it, we're going to Rome. Let's do this. Let's make this happen. So through the day, more money trickled in. Came to Foundations, was inspired again. You need to take that class if you haven't. Went home, and Christopher was there, and I said, okay, we decided we were going to stay Airbnb because it's cheaper. So we said, let's look online. Let's find the one we want. We've already selected a bunch. Let's pick which one we want. So we found the one we want, and it was $500 for the 9 days we were going to be in Rome. And I said, okay, let's look at my PayPal account to see what money's come in for these tuitions. And guess what? There was $500 in my account. I said, we're going to book it. And he looked at me, and he said, it's non-refundable. I said, I know. We're going to book it. Because we're going to Rome. He said, Roger, we don't have plane tickets yet. I said, I know. We're going to book it. And I booked it. It's a little scary. And I booked it. And I said, we're going to Rome. This was Wednesday night. So Wednesday night, I go to bed. And I have, as I said, I have some subconscious tools that I work a lot. And I had a board meeting in my head that night with Ernest Holmes was there. A whole bunch of people were there. And I didn't sleep Wednesday night. I stayed up all night long working in the subconscious place, finding answers, finding solutions, and I woke up I didn't wake up because I didn't go to sleep. I was very tired, and first thing in the morning, I had another couple of inspirations of some programs that I can put out to people in my company to help them build their business, and thought, okay, I can do this. So I created these programs, and there's a woman in my company who's quite a big leader in the company who it's very successful, and she has a huge influence. And she happened to comment on something on my page this morning. I thought, she can help me. See, I made an agreement that night that any inspiration that I had for the next 24 hours, I was going to follow no matter what. I thought she could help me. So I sent her a message. I said, hey, I'm putting this program out. It's going to be up in Utah where all your people are. Can you do me a favor and just help spread the word? I'm raising some money. I really need to get some people there. She said, absolutely. This is a woman that I've had a 45-second conversation with. I don't even know her. She said, absolutely. I said, thank you. So I sent her all the information. She started putting out a couple of registrations. Tuition started coming in. I was pretty excited about it. And she About 4:30, 5:30 that night, I was in my son's scooter lesson in the middle of the skateboard gym, and I get a message from her. She said, "I have a great idea." Now hear me. We had our accommodations booked, and that was it. She said, "I'm going to send you my credit card number, and you're going to book your flight, and when all this is said and done, you're home. I know you'll handle it, and we're good. So pack your bags." And I'm sitting in the skateboard gym, crying, sobbing, weeping, and I call her. I said, "Are you serious?" She said, "Absolutely." She said, "I woke up this morning." Or no, I told her, I said, "You're an answer to so many prayers." She said, "I woke up this morning and I said a prayer that somebody would come into my life who I could help today, and it's you." So a week from tomorrow morning, we're flying to Rome for 10 days to see my baby do her magic. There you go.
And that, my friends, is how it works. That is how it works. Even when you think it isn't working. Even, that one was quick. That was a 7-day demonstration. Sometimes our demonstrations aren't like that. Sometimes the magic takes a different route. Sometimes the magic even takes a route that looks like failure. But I want to leave you with a final story to show that no matter what it looks like, we can trust, because eventually it does work out and the magic occurs. This is a story out of Big Magic, and it's a story about an Australian writer and poet by the name of Clive James. Anybody know of Clive James? I had a couple people in first service know that author. John, of course you would. You know every author that ever was born or lived. So Clive James is his name. The story goes like this. He had an enormous failure. He wrote a play, and it debuted on the London stage, and it was not only bombed critically, but she wrote, it also ruined his family financially and cost him several dear friends. He fell into a dark, deep depression. And after the play closed, all he could do was sit on his couch and be depressed. And he thought to himself, he could not imagine how he would ever have the courage to write anything ever again. So there he sat, in depression and in sadness, while his wife tries to keep the family together. He has 2 little girls. One day, several weeks or a bit after this occurred, his 2 daughters came to him and, Daddy, we have 2 old, ugly hand-me-down bikes. Would you please paint them and make them prettier? He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to get off the couch. But something in him said, all right, I'll help my daughters. So reluctantly, with no joy or enthusiasm whatsoever, he got off the couch, he went outside, he got a bucket of red paint, and he started to paint the bicycles. She writes, he painted them in vivid shades of red. Then he frosted the wheel spokes with silver and striped the seat posts to look like barber's poles. But he didn't stop there. When the paint dried, he began to add hundreds of tiny silver and gold stars, a field of exquisitely detailed constellations all over the bike. The girls grew impatient for him to finish, but he could not be complete until it was complete. So he kept working, and he just couldn't stop painting stars. But finally, he did. And Elizabeth Gilbert writes, when at last he was done, his daughters pedaled off on their magical new bikes, thrilled with the effect, while the great man sat there wondering what on earth he was going to do next with himself. But the next day, the daughters brought another little girl from the neighborhood who wanted to have her bike painted with all these beautiful stars. And so he painted her bike. And the next day, 3 kids from the neighborhood came who wanted their bikes adorned like this, and so he painted their bikes. And as the days passed, child after child after child came to have their bikes become objects of art. It says, and so it came to pass that one of the most important writers of his generation spent several weeks sitting in his driveway, painting thousands and thousands of tiny stars on the bicycles of every child in the area. As he did so, he came to a slow discovery. He realized that failure has a function. It asks you whether you really want to go on making things or living your dream. I'll put that in there. To his surprise, James realized that his answer was yes. He really did want to go on making things, and for that moment, all he wanted to make were beautiful stars on children's bicycles. But as he did, something was healing within him. Something was coming back to life. Because when the last bike had been decorated and every star in his personal cosmos had been diligently painted back into place, Clive James at last had this thought: I will write about this someday. And in that moment, he was free. The failure had departed. The Creator had returned. By doing what was in front of him with all his heart, he got straight back to big magic. And so no matter where we are in this journey, whether we have a manifestation that takes 7 days, or we have a colossal failure, we can always trust what can be trusted and get back to creating big magic in our lives. So let's pray. I'm just seeing stars right now. Just millions of stars. All shapes and sizes, silver and gold. And every one of those stars, an idea, a divine idea, an unformed manifestation of God, an idea that is waiting to land on a heart, is waiting to land on my heart, is waiting to land on our hearts. Each one of those stars, a divine idea that only wants to be brought into form through a human partner. So as I envision these stars and I see them dropping on us in this room right now, I see them raining down and landing in us. I accept and know that we have an openness to receive them and to say, yes, that one is mine. I'm going to become completely engaged and embrace that idea, completely inspired by it. And I move forward with persistence and determination and knowing that I have permission to do this simply because of who I am. And that I trust here and now that this idea is mine for a purpose, for a reason, and it therefore supports everything that needs to occur for it to be brought out, for you to go to your Rome. So this is what I know here this morning, and I am deeply grateful for this knowing, and deeply grateful that as I have spoken these words and set God's perfect law in motion, that they manifest themselves through us, as us, in us, and around us. For this I am deeply grateful. And as I release and let go, I simply trust and know that it is done. So let us say together, and so it is. Amen.